So I've always really liked indie games. They sort of have this way of trying to circumvent the fact that they have less money by coming up with really, really original concepts for them. That being said, when I think of the best indie games, I think of indie games that had to really try and explore concepts that weren't widely available to the market at the moment, especially when you're trying to compete against AAA giants. You have to be very creative. So, of course, I think of things like Cave Story, this amazing game built by one man that has a great art direction, amazing soundtrack, great characters and writing, and of course, tight, rewarding, and also very challenging gameplay. That being said, Cave Story is also freeware, so if you haven't played Cave Story, what are you waiting for at this point? I also think of Undertale. Undertale is an amazing game. It's sort of dubbed the RPG that you would give to people who don't like turn-based RPGs, as it really challenged the whole turn-based formula and made it really different from what we've really ever seen before, ever, in a video game. I also think of Goat Simulator. Not that I want to think of Goat Simulator, I just think it's incredible that they created the innovative concept of making a game solely focused on being made for YouTube videos and reposting it. It's one of the most tasteless, substanceless, awful games I've ever seen in my... Anyways, this allows me to segue into the topic of the video, Starfetchers, a free game on Steam. Not a free-to-play game, it is just a free game in its entirety. I've noticed a lot of developers doing this, particularly indie developers, will just release a game that is maybe a small sample of the finished product, or it is just a proof of concept for what they can do, so that way it can encourage people to back their future games and projects and take a look at them. It's kind of like doing volunteer work to put on your resume to get your first job, except this is your job, and it's probably much harder. But, poor analogy aside, I was really excited to see what Starfetchers had to offer. The cover art for the game looked really interesting from what I saw on Steam. And true to what my brain was telling me, I found a very unique and very stylistic game. The story is as follows. You're a loser, but then you meet up with this guy named Zambezi, and he's like an outlaw who exists in the gray zone, which is this one concept that isn't explored just yet. Anyways, events happen, you join up with him and your fellow outlaws, but as it turns out, Zambezi's gang is not as cool as he was making it out to be. But it will be, with your help. And that's when you start introducing this mechanic I thought was pretty cool, or this concept, rather, that I think they're going to explore on in the future. It's this mechanic or concept where your gang, which is just you and Zambezi, go up against this other gang, and that gang's threat level is probably higher than yours, and once you beat that gang, your threat level goes up to theirs, and it, of course, goes higher and higher, I guess, as you progress and defeat more gangs. You only defeat 2 within the pilot, like the free pilot that I downloaded, so I'm excited to see what they do with that in the future. I thought it was pretty interesting. Because they're gang members, you're also able to mess around with the designs, of course, for different gangs. I digress, moving on. After you defeat your first gang, Zambezi says that
we just need money. One more decent take, and we're gone.
The opportunity of getting said money comes when you and Zambezi find 2 fictional FBI government goons. One of them's this cute little muffin right here, and the other one is this tall Chad man who puts his hand down his pants. And that is pretty funny. That really got me. I really liked that. After slashing through tons of goons on their behalf, you finally get a key to a jail cell. Once you go in the jail cell, the game finally decides to reveal to you what actually happened to Jeffrey Epstein. That's right, Jeffrey Epstein didn't... The actual gameplay consists of a side-scrolling, with very light platformer elements. You have a double jump, you got a wall jump. Sometimes you can kick people in the head to get some extra height. But essentially, your mouse controls your character's sword. Wherever you move the mouse, your character moves the sword. So you can use it to block other swords, you can use it to stab people, you can use it to deflect bullets. And with that simple system, they create a lot of interesting situations, considering the fact that this is really just a demo. They have this interesting boss where you deflect back projectiles, but it's really fun because you're making your own deflects, you're using the mouse, right? It looks pretty goofy, but admittedly it is a pretty goofy game. A lot of the writing has this very contemporary meme humor style to it. Sometimes I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I'm not really the expert judge on humor, and I do think it is pretty clever at times. So the fact that the gameplay looks a bit goofy, or the fighting system looks a bit goofy, kind of fits in with that whole comedic aesthetic that they're going for. The gameplay can be best described as if you were playing Katana Zero, but you haven't slept for 3 days, was how somebody described it, and I thought that was very apt. It rewards different methods of play, and you're never de-incentivized from experimenting because there's such a short respawn timer. Like, you die in one hit, and then you press R and you continue, Hotline Miami style. So it is pretty fun because of that, and I had a lot of fun, going on massive tears, or sometimes patiently cutting bullets in half, waiting for my time to strike. All good fun, absolutely. Now, despite what I've just said, even though I've sang a few praises, the combat is not perfect, but that is a given for a game that I got for free and is essentially an hour-long demo for a story that they're trying to set up that seems to look pretty long, right? So I'm excited for the combat to definitely improve, and I'm figuring that if it's decent now, it must get way better later, right? Regardless, the place where this game really shines for me is the art direction and the music. I love the art, just the aesthetic they go for in so many different places in the game is this gloomy, sad, dreary areas. So whenever you hear a tune that's like even remotely pleasant, it's kind of like this vast difference, and you can see it immediately, and I really love that. And the soundtrack absolutely drives that home as well. The fighting track for this game is really good. It's action-packed, and it keeps you in there when you're dying over and over in one room. It keeps you hyped up, and of course the boss track is amazing, but this is also contrasted with more atmospheric tracks that are meant to put you in this gloomy, drowsy feel when you're walking in the slums of this fictional neighborhood where the sky is red and there's so much smog that people born there haven't ever seen stars before. And it really, really immerses you in that world, and I love that. The soundtrack, though, in and of itself, is not very conventional, which I like because it's really different. It's like a breath of fresh air. The closest thing I can really compare it to is soundtrack from Lisa the Painful, another amazing indie game. I will play you a few right now. And finally, to double back on what I said earlier about the art, here is one of the most detailed cutscenes in the game. Most cutscenes in the game are just standard RPG dialogues. Of course, when you talk to a character in the overworld, the character's overall design has a nice sprite to it. Usually they have interesting color palettes. The profile picture that pops up when you talk to a character in the corner, like a little cube, that also looks nice too. But this right here is the real cream of the crop. This cutscene right here, where the light gleams off of Zambezi's glasses, and you get all these different angles of the car. That's really good, and the colors are really on point right there, and they show off, how well the characters are designed. I really like these, and it's a shame that there's not more of these in the game, because they might have been one of my favorite parts. Because of course, my favorite parts of this game have been the art and the music, so naturally I really like stuff like this. So yeah, to stay concise, that was my experience with the game and what I thought and my opinions of it. I'm definitely excited to see what this company brings in the future, especially with their finished product. For a free 1-hour trial of what is to come, essentially a free sample of food before I buy the entire roast turkey. Well, that is an awful joke and analogy. But moving forward, I am excited to see what becomes of this project, and I hope that it sincerely does get finished. And anything else that this company decides to make in the future, I'll definitely be looking into. So that being said, thank you very much for watching this far into the video. Consider subscribing if you'd like to see more, mediocre videos that are slowly, progressively getting better over time. Consider dropping a like, or dislike. And if you do drop a dislike or like, please let me know in the comments section what you did like about the video, what you didn't like, and I'll take that, into account when I make more videos. That being said, thank you once again for watching, and have a good one.
Everything she wants